back to This Week in Indies. As beautiful and charming as we are one of 1,000, if not millions, trying to sling the same shit in the same space. So how do we stand out in a crowd? What do you do that shows the world who you are and why they should invest in your art? Maybe more importantly, where is the best place to do what you want to do? We will discuss. Then CO Canada will be along with another indie connection with indie books you might enjoy if you're a fan of Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. Speaking of legends, our panel will get 20 questions to try and guess which legend Joe Compton has stepped into this week in the epilogue. And now, here are some deep thoughts with Jack Handy. Welcome to This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to This Week in Indies. I am your host, Joe Compton, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining us today. If you didn't catch it, I just did a little nod to the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live in the intro, and a little nod to my dear old friend, JD Estrada, because it's appropriate for this topic, and the double O bananas. Or maybe I should say, I did a nod to Double O Bananas. We don't necessarily know who he is, right? But
he appeals.
But we have a great panel for you. I didn't get this opportunity last week because I didn't host last week, so I just wanted to give an opportunity to mention the passing of somebody very important in my life, Mr. David Lynch. And he's important for many, many reasons. I just his art, his daringness, his boldness, his ability to transcend narrative storytelling and to create a narrative within a complex enigma, puzzle, riddle aspect, and also do it in nonlinear fashion. He was one of the first to explore that. He was one of the first to really engage in that philosophy. And I managed to be in a class. I've told this several times, but I was in a class of Robert McKee's story. I got to take his course. David Lynch came and talked to the class for about 3 hours, and he was very gracious. He answered every single question that anybody had about everything, including who really killed Laura Palmer and all these other weird shit that people came up with. It was just amazing to be in his presence and to hear him talk. And that was awesome. And so I've had personal experience in indirect ways with David Lynch. And obviously he's very personal to me as a filmmaker and storyteller. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you and rest in power, my friend. I know your art will live on forever, and I'm really happy about that because it's amazing. If you haven't seen any of David Lynch's films, I did my favorites on list on there, but all of them are worth its buck. All of them are. Trust me. And if you can find his short films, you want to talk about trippy and fucking you up, check out his short films because they will dance all over your head and you'll be like, what the hell did I just watch? And there's some out there. He's got a collection, I think, of on Prime that you can get the collection. It's like 10 of his short films. They're crazy. If you think he's a great storyteller feature-wise, short film-wise, he's awesome as well. All right, enough of me yapping. You didn't come to hear me yap. You came to hear all these wonderful, beautiful people yap because they're worth it. And I'm just real excited to see all of them and have them all here. So as we go along, let's just say hello and have everybody introduce themselves. So Mr. Estrada, please start us off.
Yappity yap, don't go back. Anyways, greetings, fellow humans. I am toasting to our dear David, and I'm not drinking Bordeaux, but I am drinking some nice tea. I already had my coffee, and I did not. David Lynch was. I have several influences. He was one of two influences that it's not how it's not what I write, it's how I write in terms of just not caring and just going for it. That guy went for it. He was awesome. I am Jade Estrada. I am from Puerto Rico. I am the representative of Double O Bananas. I go on daydreams. I love engaging with people. I love connecting with readers. And I've connected with readers in a variety of ways. So I'm excited to share my randomness, because although I'm not taking the world by storm, at least people remember me for the randomest shit. And I love that.
And it's different random shit, which we'll talk about, which I think is great.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of random shit, here's Bob Magoo.
Hey,
What a segue.
yeah, right. I don't have any David Lynch stories. I made a bad pun about him in the comments, but that's about all I got. But he did make the best
catch that one. I'll have to
movie
look
of all
at
time.
it.
But yeah, I'm Bob Magoo. I am an author from South Alabama. I write a series of books about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction, and I'm always doing weird shit to try and engage with my readers.
Awesome. Yeah, we love it. We love it, Bob. We love it. Thank you for being here and having to talk about this topic. We also love our representation from Outsider Publishing, the one and only Tiffany Vega. Hello, Tiffany. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, please.
I am Tiffany Vega, and I am co-owner of Outsider Publishing Company. One day we'll do comics. And you can find all of our information at outsiderpublishingcompany.com. And I just have to say, David Lynch was one of my favorite filmmakers. And The Elephant Man has made the most lasting impression my whole entire life.
Nice.
That movie is just like, I love it. It's sad.
A movie he was not originally supposed to do.
I'm sorry?
A movie he was not originally supposed to do.
Oh, yeah. But it's one of my, like, when I think of David Lynch, that's what I think of. That or Twin Peaks, of course. But, yeah, that's my story about him. And you can find me over on all social medias. And I am here to learn more about engaging with people, because that is my goal for this year.
Nice. Well, but something else we love is new people. And we have a fresh face with us today, Mr. Hollow. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm DZ Hollow. That's a new pen name. I put out stuff last year. My wife and I, well, she does a lot of the work. I do more writing. She's much better at it. Do a publishing company, Above the Rain Collective. Juliet Rose, she's incredible. If you haven't checked her out, definitely do that. But I wrote last year, put a bunch of stuff out after writing since I was 13 years old under my real name. And then stuff got darker and my job changed and I started working with the public and people started asking me about books and felt like it was probably good to go on with a pen name. So I'm also a musician. I've got about 20 years of production with Fruity Loops, playing other instruments, all that podcasting that I did with my stories under my real name, with my music to it, and all that jazz. So, and on the David Lynch shout out, I just got to say, in college when I was at West Georgia, the very early 2000s, yeah, Mulholland Drive was something we watched too many times with too many people cramming into a very small dorm room. So
yeah, it's one of those you have to watch a few times because there's so much subtext to it. But yeah. Yes. Oh, well, thank you, man. Welcome aboard. We love having you. And we love having our crowd. Margaret's here. Anita's here. I saw Vanessa here. And I said, yeah, there she is. Hi, Vanessa. And she says, yay for new folks. I'm not going to go through. God, you guys are just ripping through the chat here. But Twin Peaks and Lost Highways are my fave. Yeah, we have plenty of them. We have two of them on the panel today. So musicians, that is. So, you know, I would call myself a musician, but then I'd be lying. Twin Peaks is the reason I know how to tie a cherry stem with my tongue. All right. Yes. David Lynch worked with Duran Duran a few years ago, so you know I love him even if I didn't love him. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We got a nice crowd here. So let's explore this idea for a moment, right? So bear with me. I'm going to go a little bit off the reservation, a little bit into the weeds a little bit here, and talk a little bit about something that influences me a little bit. Um, there's a certain term in a certain thing that a certain art form that I like called pro wrestling, called getting over it, and
Hmm.
that is basically making making yourself so aware to the audience that that everybody who's in charge of writing stories for you or putting things out there for you, you have no choice but to acknowledge that you have this power with the audience, right? And so in that spirit, I'm kind of wondering how you translate what you do and who you are into the spirit of reaching an audience. How do you all get over? What is some of the things that you've utilized to get over? And I know JD has quite a few to probably list here, and Bob as well. So Tiffany and DZ, if you guys want to, give us some options for how you guys look at what you've been looking at, how you do it. I mean, being a musician probably helps a lot for you, I would imagine, DZ. And so, tell us a little bit about how you've experienced getting over, and then I'll let Bob and JD take over the rest of the hour.
Well, I say for somebody who's done every creative thing since I was a kid, and creativity being my focus. So that was writing my first story at 13 and drawing at 5 and all that, to pursuing music for the last 20 years, podcasting, all that. There's a billion hurdles across the board, whether it's promoting, getting stuff out there, social media, to just creating the ideas. So when it comes to creating ideas for me and relating to people, I always look at my own personal life, people I've known, people I've really close to, what they've gone through, what kind of experiences. It's crazy how things just kind of come out of your head from maybe a week ago to 25 years ago, whatever it is. And for me, when it comes to writing, creating anything like that, and engaging with an audience from the creative side, it's definitely about pulling from personal experience or anybody that I know. When it comes to promoting or engaging to people to get your product out there, it's obviously the biggest hurdle. I think being in this day and age, the more we can do everything, whether that's obviously your edit, not your social media, you're making an image, your cover, or making a little trailer that has a video with blurbs that pop up,
Nice.
whatever it is, there's always hurdles there. And the big thing for me, I think, is one, learning from other people, talking to other people, communicating, see what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and what works for you and doesn't work for you. And what I can definitely tell you is there's a lot that doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's a lot that doesn't work. So
Do you compartmentalize your music versus your writing, or do you incorporate the two?
I definitely have in the past, and with this new pen name and the new venture with DZ Hollow, I that's definitely going to be more of a focus. Last
Mhm.
year for me was the first time actually publishing anything I've written after writing. I mean, 20 books that I probably just no one ever read, no one ever saw, threw aside, years of stories. And then finally I was ready to get stuff out there. And, I sold a lot. I didn't do any social media stuff. I did all in-person events, things like that. Really got my books in people's hands that way and saw that side. But I didn't, for writing, I didn't really do any of the social media stuff, all the things that I've done for music over the last, 10 or 15 years of that. But
Mhm.
with podcasts, I did. And even the same thing, I didn't really do much promoting it. A lot of it was for me just getting used to doing all of these things. I mean, now you live in a day and age that we, if you can do video, audio, and write, you're going to need less people to help you out. If you can make a cover on your own, that's awesome. If you can make a quick video and put your own music to it, then you're ahead of the game. So I hadn't really blended that stuff outside of doing a podcast. And for me, it was just getting my feet wet doing it. So now this
Yeah.
year it was, let's get serious, let's buckle down, let's put it all together and go from there. So with what I have coming out this year, I'll be doing which I did for my wife, the trailers that has the music I made myself, the video I made myself, all of it, that just kind of pulls that mood, for a
Mhm.
minute or so, 90 seconds. and just kind of go from there, because it definitely does help. And there's a lot of people out there that have a lot to say, and if you can show them your strengths, it might show them what they have inside of them that they maybe haven't realized. Oh, I could do my own narration for an audiobook, or I could start.
You mentioned it. Can I mention who your wife is so
Yeah.
people know?
Oh, yeah.
'Cause
Absolutely.
everybody
Yeah.
here will know her. His wife is Juliet Rose. She does our show. So
Yeah, Julia is awesome. So she definitely helped push me to really get my stuff out there last year, and I made trailers for her with her books and stuff, with music and all
which
that,
were
and I love
awesome.
it. I mean, it definitely correlates for sure. I mean, I hear a song or something and you can immediately see a mood. I think we all seen plenty of movies, so we know exactly when we see something, we probably hear some sort of sound or ambience to it.
Nice. Awesome. Tiffany, starting a new publishing company. Do you what kind of engagements and stuff are you trying to accomplish with that? Because I know you spent a lot of time last year working on your own stuff and putting yourself out there for your own stuff. So what did you learn from that, and what are you incorporating for this year for your publishing company?
So for this year, my focus is definitely getting more engagement. So we are doing things like weekly blogs. We are doing a serialized release on a book on our blogs to get engagement with that and the feedback about how they like the story so far. And I spend all day, usually after I'm on Go Indie, I spend all day planning out marketing for the week. So I try to get at least one post up on Instagram a week, one post on Blue Sky, and are starting to do a YouTube channel about publishing, which is not up yet, but we're in the process of starting it. So, but I do get a lot of inspiration from both the gentlemen up there, from JD and from Bob. Because of Bob, I start doing a monthly, what did we spend our money on, and what we made back, being totally transparent with starting a publishing company. It's not like making hundreds of dollars a month, So, and we get a lot of feedback on like, well, why did you only do this and that? And it's like we're just starting. Like we officially released our first book at the end of the year, like November. Our next one is not out until March, so it's not, we're getting there, but doing like writing contest. Right now we have a short story contest going on, and we're getting some feedback or some engagement on that. But I'm here to learn from these two.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, the book you published was awesome. It made my list, and the two of those stories in there are probably two of my favorites that I've read in a long time in horror. So I was real excited about all of that. So
I know that one of your favorite was Home in the Box, and that is absolutely my favorite one out of that. And
your
I don't
story
know.
was great too. Your story was really good.
Oh,
So.
thank you. I definitely would say that I am probably on the bottom of that talent in that book, and it is really a lot of talented writers in there, and I was so blessed.
But I'm curious because we're gonna turn it over to Bob here in a second. But you were at Multiverse a year ago, not last year, but the year before that, before the move. Did you learn anything about in person that you want to incorporate for this year from that experience?
Of course, I mean, and Bob is great at selling himself. Yeah. His stories, his stuff. I am definitely much more personable when I can talk to somebody much easier than I can put it on social media. I like to say I'm funny, but not on the computer. It's half of the joke is you're laughing at yourself, or you're telling a story about yourself. It just does not convey on a Instagram post, and just selling your personality is half of selling your stories. And I know that Bob does that so well, because even though he's not a meth addicted wizard, he really plays into that story, and he sells it so well. And I'm dying to test out, and I will be at JordanCon this year.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah.
I will be testing selling myself out. Wow, that sounded really bad, but selling through my personality this year, and I just can't wait because the few little vending.
Well, I'll let you know. I'll be there as well, so I'll let you know how you did.
The few little vending that I've done here in Phoenix has gone really well. I do a lot of sales that way more than I do off of my engagement.
Yeah. Well, we can actually start the show now because Miss Alicia's here, so I'm real excited about that. Miss Alicia, it's nice to see you. It wasn't good. wasn't quite perfect. The show wasn't quite perfect without you, so we're so excited you're here. Thank you for joining us. All right, Bob. I tried to t-ball that for you to set it up because I know you want to talk about the in-person aspect of things and how much more engaging that is for you. I know that you do a lot on both ends, but you know, talk a little bit about how you managed to juggle both ends for us a little bit.
How do you juggle your
So-
balls?
Yeah, basically.
I wasn't gonna go there, but
Hey, um, so I will say that if I'm any sort of guide pole for folks, we're all doomed. So um, no, so uh, I have most of my adult life struggled with uh, social anxiety to some degree or another, and struggled with introversion and things like that, and hated talking in public. And it was one of those. I eventually just had to. I went to therapy and I learned some tips and tricks on how to kind of process that. And it still affects me in certain types of situations. I don't do well at like showing up to a party where I don't know anyone. I need someone to ground off of, and people frequently comment that I'm always telling stories. It's because I'm just dog shit at small talk, and so I just tell stories to fill the air. Um, so I'd say for those of you who are like, oh God, I can't imagine being out in public and having to talk to people and trying to convince people that I have anything worth checking out. Yeah, it's hard. It is, but you can get there. I have spent a lot of years, and that's the thing. You don't have to be good right out the gate. As long as you just get out the gate, that's all that matters. Everything is iterative. So I would say that the key to my success is being authentic while I'm very who you see out in the world is very much who I am, but it is kind of me amped to 11. I'm not typically that talkative in my daily life. I am typically not as self-deprecating. If you put me on a panel, uh, we were at Chattacon this past weekend, and Tyra Burton kept. She was the moderator on a couple of my panels, and she kept wanting to smack me because I would be very self-deprecating uh, to the point of almost ridiculousness. Um, so that is me. That is kind of my persona. It's this redneck backwoods guy. Why did you let me out of Alabama? Who let me in here? Oh my God. Uh, and it is. I am those things. I am not those things to 11 all the time. That is my public persona, and that's kind of a mask that I wear that helps me handle all this. So, but it's still being true to me. It's just me to 11. So being authentic, uh, being weird. I literally wrote a whole book on this. That if you're creative, it's fantastic. That's just step one, though. There's billions of other creative people. You've got to figure out how to use your creativity to get noticed. That's what's going to make you a success. And I'm a weird little shit. So I go do weird things and it gets me noticed. So well, I've told this story on here before, but I will occasionally dress up as my main character, redneck guy mullet wig, cut off jean jorts, because he likes the way the fringe feels on his knees when he's high. And I'll go down street corners holding up a sign that says "Read Redneck Wizard Books," and sometimes it works great. I got into the paper, I think, because of it. But I also got a gun brandished at me, so it's kind of, it can go either way. But I guarantee you, I reached people that I would not have reached any other way.
The
And
gun the
then,
gun was kind of like, it was kind
go
of not brandished at you, but around you.
yeah, yeah. It was, homeless. You just don't expect a homeless guy to have a gun,
You're
but
right.
then again,
Pri-
it's Alabama.
but priorities.
Yeah, welcome to
Well,
Alabama.
I mean, when you're
Never
at Bass Pro, right? You expect everybody to have a gun, though. But
Yeah, well, that was the second time when I
okay.
encountered him. I encountered the same homeless guy. So when I encountered him the second time, I knew he had a gun, and that's why I was freaking out because he was getting into a shouting match with Bass Pro attendees. And I just like, well, I know they got guns, and he's got a gun, and everyone's yelling, and I'm just standing here holding a sign. Things about to go sideways. Woo! But yeah, and the last thing I'd say is bring value to the community. If you bring value, and if all you ever do is say buy, 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 people start to tune you out. So bring value to the community. The stuff I actually get the most engagement on, that I get the most emails about, messages, is my transparency. Uh,
Mhm.
I got a message yesterday from a guy who was basically saying, "Hey, thanks for doing this. I'm a new author. This gives me a lot. There's a lot of meat on this bone that I can chew on for a while, essentially." And so that's, I think,
We're
what.
going to chew on a lot of it here at Go Indie Now, which we're real excited about.
Yeah, yes. And so, but yeah, so be authentic, like be true to who you are. Get weird, or if you're not weird like me, just find your thing. My thing is being weird, um, and then bring value. So you're not just always selling. And at that point, that combination is what's gotten me to my very, very, very limited degree of success.
What kind of host would I not be? Would I be if I didn't appease to the chat? Here you go.
There it is. There it is. You can't
So the
hide
chat
that.
asked for it.
You can't
You
hide
got it. Careful what you
Yes.
wish for.
Yeah. Yes. That paper is now immortalized in the Montgomery Advertiser.
All right, Mr. Estrada, take
Okay.
us through your week, because you do things weekly, monthly. You've got a whole schedule of beautifulness that you bring to us on a daily basis. So tell us all about it, please, sir.
Okay, I do a lot of things, but first thing that I'm going to do is show that I have Bob's book and I will be reading it. And wait, Bob's book.
Yeah.
And I have this book that I'm also going to be reading. And in terms of indie people, I shall always, indie books will always be in rotation in English and Spanish, just because that's part of who I am. That's part of what's important to me. That's something that I always project, which goes back to points that all of you have mentioned in terms of authenticity. To me, the most important thing is to be authentic to yourself, whatever the hell that means. I'm not weird. I'm quirky. And I learned this the hard way, because I was like, man, I wrote something that's so weird. And then someone who wrote bizarro fiction was like, that's not weird. And I'm like, why isn't it weird? It's like, I got a story about an avocado killer that jerks off into the guac. And it's like, okay, I'm not weird. I'm not weird. I'm quirky, and I'm extremely quirky. And when I say that I'm extremely quirky and that I try to be authentic, everything that I do on social media, yeah, I do some, hey, buy my stuff posts, which I actually do, taking from DZ's comment about doing your own stuff. If you can do it and Canva lets you do a lot and do a lot for free, do it. Some of the covers on my books I've done, but let's go through the week and then talk about the month and talk about some other stuff. So every single day of the week, I have at least one or two things that I do. And people have read me because of these things, or I'm in their radar because of these things. So I'm going to look one up just because it's going to be quicker. So on Mondays, there's something that I do called visual typos. So I take a typical thing. I do a typo of the word and the term, and then I do a stupid visual that makes people go, huh? So this was one of the most recent ones. So Macaulay Culkin. That's what a visual typo is. I'm also Puerto Rican, and people are surprised that instead of always consuming coffee, I drink a lot of tea. And I do like tea, and I do enjoy a variety of teas. And I enjoy it so much that on Tuesdays, I do something called Dictionary. Dictionary is just me taking a word that has TI or TY or the T sound and just making a definition based on T. Okay. I also do taste tests, and I have reeled in family members to do the taste test. The taste test, part of me and part of the research, and I really enjoy writing drinks and food and aromas, different things, just because I love playing with the senses and because there's so much around and so much weird stuff. Hey, thank you. So much stuff around that the more you experience, the richer your descriptions can be, or the more creative your descriptions can be. There's so many things that I don't have a reference in terms of what they taste like, and then that's a mental exercise. And part of the trick of the taste test is this is real time me tasting it and trying to do a creative, interesting, engaging way to convince you to either try it or stay away from it. But it's like me processing all this information in one moment. Okay, so I've mentioned already 3 things and we haven't gotten to Wednesday, but I do brand myself as a creativity ambassador just because I think that creativity applied in different ways not only can solve humanity's problems, even the ones that we manufacture ourselves, but it can lead to a richer life, it can lead to healing, it can lead to more enjoyment, and it'll lead to taking a boring day and finding something fun in it. So speaking of Jack Handy, I do Sky Thoughts, but Sky Thoughts, it's not being cheeky. It's me. These are pictures that I take or that someone sends me. And I do these. This is I look at the picture, I write the thing, I try to make sure and proofread it, and then I post the thing. That's it. Sometimes I put a song with it if it's on Instagram and stuff like that. But the idea is also to show range. So I did one very stupid, humorous thing. Then I did another humorous thing, but it's a bit toned down. This one's sweet. Next up, Thursday is Sock It To Me. And I always wear something interesting in my shoes. People have asked me if they can take a picture of me with my socks. And I always say, of course. This began as a little and to show that what you do in your day-to-day life can also feed into your brand platform, which is such a shitty term to just explain who and how you are. So I worked at a corporate place for like 7 years, and it's like you had to wear a polo shirt or a button shirt or something, and my little rebellion was having quirky socks, and from there came Sock It To Me, and I just embraced it. And the amount of socks that I have is borders on ludicrous, but it is what it is. Then I do have Double O Bananas. Double O Bananas, people go like, oh, are you going to do more videos? And it's like, yeah, but it takes a lot of effort because I'm filming it and it's like getting an idea. And then you want to get it in 1 or 2 takes because you have other stuff on the plate. I am a banana secret agent. This is like my little tribute to Charlie Chaplin and random humor. I never verbalize. So it's like setting the scene. I appear from somewhere that you go like, what the hell? I do something that you go like, what the hell? I whip out my banana, which people love it when I whip out my banana. I give a nod and I walk off the screen. That's it. That is the formula. And it's also like a tribute to Mr. Bean because I am a really big fan of Mr. Bean. I did this, and then I kept doing it, not because fans clamored for it. Mom was like, after Hurricane Maria, Mom was like, you know that your nephews are always looking forward to those videos, right? And I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to stop doing this for a while. And it's just also me showing that sure, you can be serious when you have to be serious. Sure, you can be professional when you have to be professional, but you don't have to grow up and you don't have to, have a stick stuck up your ass. Another thing that I do is that I raise a glass. It's either tea or coffee or water or a cocktail or a beer or wine. And I say, cheers, Mama Estrada, to my mom. My mom passed away in 2019. I've always been very open about my relationship with mom. And I say my relationship with mom in an active present tense because I speak to mom every day. I write to her every day. And when people have gone through stuff, we've had conversations. It's not like I have all those solutions for all the answers. I tell people what I went through with mom in the different facets of her illnesses, the highs, the lows. And it was always, thoughts and prayers are nice, but mom would always get a kick out of this because she was literally going through chemotherapy, and she would see posts and she's like, I like it that people are getting drunk because of me. And you know, how can you stop doing that? I mention all these things not so that you know my weekly schedule. I have people that read me, have bought a book because of each of these things. And they write me, oh, I went to Amsterdam and I saw this sock shop. And they take a picture of a sock shop in Amsterdam and send it to me.
I'm guilty. I'm one of those assholes. I did it at Park City. When I walked by a stock shop at Park City, I did it. I'm one of those.
No, and stuff like that. I had this tea and I thought about you. I saw this typo in the newspaper and I thought about you. I saw this huge bunch of bananas and I thought about you. And I was happy to have this series included on the screen because in terms of engagement, the Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore are short stories. There's 2 volumes to them. And the thing is that they started off because of a conversation I had with a fellow indie from the UK. And we just shot the shit for like, I don't know how many days. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm going to do a series. And she was like, go for it. So when you read the Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore, JD is moi. And Claudette is Claudette. It's someone that I know in real life. The second short story in the first volume is completely fictional. The third one on is people that I've known that are from England, that are from India, that are from Nepal, that are from the UK, that are from Australia, that are from different places that I haven't been able to meet in person, but I wanted to spend some time with them. And that's how that project came about. So it's a project based on engagement and talking to people, and it's just built up and more and more and more. The last short story in the second volume is with a very talented poet from India. Her name is Seema Tabassum. She appears in that short story, as well as Apu, her son, and Tamal, her husband. So I invited the whole family for this trip, and the project has grown to the point where I asked the people that are going to be in the stories a bunch of questions, and then I just drop in the story, and they help shape the story because I wanted something that was absolutely, completely, 100% ours, not just influence, but something that had the DNA of people. And again, I'm not taking the world by storm, but at the very least, people say, okay, the guy makes an effort.
I'm curious to bring the rest of the whole panel back into all of this and talk a little bit about. Thank you, JD. Thank you, everybody, for sharing their thoughts. I really appreciate all that. Because I think it's important to show people that you can do this on a regular basis, right? But I am curious about, again, I'll go back to my anchor for this episode, which is pro wrestling, and the idea of how people get over oftentimes involves leaking a little bit of yourself into that aspect, right? Even though they're playing a character, and they're still basing a character on what they're presenting on screen. It is just a piece of them that they've added in there, and a lot, and there are some that are truly 100% themselves on screen, which is a scary thought. But if you've ever met a pro wrestler, but the idea, I'm kind of curious, does it work opposite for you all because you're creators, you're authors, cosplay in a Bass Pro Shop aside? Do you all try to incorporate some of that confidence that you've put into your writing, into your creations, that character into your authenticity. Is there a balance for you there, or is it all about just being truly transparent and completely authentic? I'm just curious what you think about that aspect of this. Anybody else jump in?
I would say I'm kind of, I think, like Bob, where when I talk to people and when I post stuff, it is me, but maybe a little bit more than what I normally am. I'm not necessarily a confident person, but when I am posting, I post with confidence, because it's almost like you do want to be yourself. You don't want, to fool anybody into thinking you're something you're not, but just do it with a little bit more authority. Like you know what you're doing, even if you really don't know what you're doing. Just have that confidence that I normally wouldn't have.
That's fair.
I know. Oh crap! Now I can't. Imposter syndrome. There we go. I mean, pretty much every creative I know struggles with imposter syndrome, and that was something I was really bad about early on, and I was not. And I feel in my case, this may not be true for everyone, but in my case, I had to be confident in my work before I could sell my work, and that basically took a bunch of strangers on the internet leaving reviews that were positive. At that point, I was like, okay, this is not friends and family. This is people out in the world who have no vested interest in telling me this book was good, other than they just liked the book. And at that point, kind of talking about what Tiffany said, at that point, I felt like I was able to post with authority, basically. A bunch of strangers had judged my work competent, and so I now felt confident that I could post as a competent writer. And then at that point, it was just dialing the knob on how many puns I'm going to work into this post or not.
Which has become more of your personality than you probably wanted it to be.
I'm actually you talk. JD talked about how people are always like sending pictures of like sock shops and stuff like that. I am forever getting tagged in puns. Any sort of the moment that there's like a image of a bunch of puns that hits Facebook, I know it because like 5 different people will all tag me within the next 24 hours, and I'm here for it. I love it. I love puns. I wouldn't make them if I didn't love them. For those who know him, Darren Kennedy is also quite the pun aficionado, and me and him shared a hotel room at Chattacon,
Oh my
and
god!
weirdly, I don't think we said one pun the whole weekend while we
Yeah,
were in the room.
it's like
You
comedians
canceled
getting
each other.
Yeah,
like
it's like we were so like
it's like comedians
prox-
getting together. They may talk about the construction of a joke, but they'll never tell a joke to each other, right? So yeah,
yeah.
but I see for everybody who's going to talk ahead of this, Vanessa put in a great question. I don't want to address that question just yet. I will address that after the indie connection. So just keep that in mind, but we will talk about that. That is actually the question I had that was going to end this topic because I thought it was kind of so Vanessa and I are on the same wavelength as usual. So, but so yeah, it's a great question, Vanessa, and we'll definitely talk about it. All right. DZ, JD, you guys want to chime in on this authenticity versus character?
I mean, it's definitely one of my weaknesses for sure. I think it was easier. It's easy if you, in this day and age, to definitely almost try to come up with something like that. I think it can definitely help. It should be something that take a little bit of time and in thought. With music, you see it a lot. We've always seen that with music, whether it was Kiss or Slipknot or whatever the Marshmallow Guy head thing is, and Dead Mouse, and you see that in music. And Stephen King tried to do it with Richard Bachman. He tried to use his neighbor's picture, for the first print of his stuff until people were like, okay, this is your writing. You know, so you see how he failed there, but he's a big name, I think. There you go. And then this day and age, I think it can really work. I think it's tough with books because people really want to connect with an author. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They really want to know who you are, and if you can really figure something out that shows yourself, but then another part that's a character like Bob has. I mean, it's brilliant. You know, if you can dial it in and do it like that, it really is something that can definitely work. I've seen it, you know, across the board in many different mediums and stuff like that. For me, I've always had the idea. Like, so on a personal level, like I have cerebral palsy. So usually when people meet me face to face, ever since I was a kid, that was the first thing they noticed, you know? So I always had this joke that, you know, in a way I could really elevate it in a sense, you know, especially living in the South and like Bob has, I grew up in Georgia and now I live in Appalachia, and I, you know, and the idea of pulling out all of these, like exacerbating all of these parts of myself, has always been something that I've wanted to do, but I unfortunately take things too far. And that has always been a little bit of a concern for me, even with forthcoming books with the new pen name. That was like, I'm gonna go a little bit further now with writing, but when it comes to like putting my face out there and constructing something that could really, or even just trying to like joke or reference a character, I don't quite have that skill honed down yet. And maybe that's because I've spread myself thin for so many years over so many creative things.
There's an old joke that Kevin Smith tells about how he always thought Prince on stage was not Prince in real life until he met him, and then he goes, "Holy crap, that guy's the same person." That's scary and weird in all in one take. And he's like, that took me aback for quite a while. I had to take
Yeah,
some time to swallow that idea.
I've heard that story. I had actually, I won't say his name, but he was a really popular artist for a while and makes a living from art. And he had a story he told one night. His favorite band was Ween, and he met Gene and Dean Ween and shared a taxi with them. And he said they were beyond what he even would have expected. That it actually blew his mind. They weren't people, they were playing characters to each other that only
Yeah.
they knew was a character, an extension of themselves, talking in voices, you know, the whole time. It was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, it's not part of a charade or anything. There is
Yeah.
definitely that inside of
Yeah,
them.
it's
So
authentically being. I mean, that we were just talking about authentically weird, right? Prince is probably the top of that food chain, if you think about it. But yeah, I mean, the stories I've heard, just this does not surprise me once iota that that he was the way he was on stage as he was in person. But
yep,
it's very interesting.
Chappelle got a show off a bunch of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh,
Pancakes
JD, you want
and
to chime in?
basketball. Um, I'll be succinct for once. It's always important for me that when people meet me in person, they get the same guy that they get online or via book or etc. I do a lot of creative stuff, and I don't have the mental bandwidth to have a persona. There are different facets of who and how I am. There are moments where I'm extremely introverted and quiet, and people go like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Can I be quiet?" But when I meet readers, never pedestals, never, because it's like, dude, even if I had a mansion with pheasants and shit, I'll still have tea with anyone, and people go like, yo, can I get a hug? And I'm like, sure, if you're not an asshole. If you're not an asshole, I have no problems, and I have had very, very, very sweet people that are having like a hard day, and then we get to talking, and then I've been the one, after they share something extremely personal at my booth. I'm like, do you want a hug? And they're like, would that be okay? And I'm like, we're human, right?
Yeah, nice, awesome. All right. Well, speaking of being human, we don't get to experience all the books we'd love to experience. So thankfully, we have C.L. Cannon here with us every week. Well, almost every week now. Sometimes I'm here. You have to deal with that aspect of it because I'm now doing indie film connections. But we have an indie book connection for you this week from C.L. Cannon. If you're a fan of lattes, legends and lattes, this is looks like a really interesting series. And here's C.L. Cannon with some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of it. So we'll be back right after that. Wrong one. Let's try this again. We'll be back right after that.
Hey guys, C.L. Cannon here with Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. The first book I have for you is called Summer's Blood by Sarah T. Bond. Hunting is illegal at the Greenwood Knob Pub. Apparently, someone didn't get the message. For weeks, solitary fae of Atlanta have been disappearing with no word, no sign of foul play, and no explanations. When a half-human fairy bartender discovers a body of a djinn in the Chattahoochee, she realizes something or someone is killing fae, and they're using her bar as the hunting ground. Siobhan wants to keep her patrons safe, but her only real magical ability is tasting the unique flavor profile of other fairies' magic. Not much help when tracking down a killer. But as more fae are killed, Siobhan is willing to do whatever it takes to keep the Greenwood Knoll a sanctuary for all who need it. When a foreign fairy queen arrives, demanding answers about one of her missing subjects, Siobhan finds herself at the center of a growing storm of suspicion. There's something bigger at play in Atlanta, and with or without magic, Siobhan needs answers. Now, to find them, she'll have to navigate the politics of a hostile fairy court and figure out why every clue seems to lead back to the Greenwood Knoll, before she or her found family fall victim to either the killer or a fairy queen's idea of justice. The second book I have for you is called A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by Jay Penner. I actually read this book and it really recommend you pick it up. A human, a dwarf, and an elf walk into a bake-off. In the heart of Adenshire, where elvish enchantments and dwarven delights rule, Arletta Starstone, a human confectionist, works twice as hard perfecting her unique blend of baking and apothecary herbs. So when an orc neighbor secretly enters her creations into the prestigious elven baking battle, Arletta faces a dilemma. Being magicless, her participation in the competition could draw more scowls than smiles. And if Arletta wants to prove her talent and establish her culinary reputation, this human will need more than just her pastry craft to sweeten the odds. While competing, she'll set off on a journey of mouth-watering pastries, self-discovery, heartwarming friendships, and romance, while questioning whether winning the baking battle is the true prize. The third book I have for you is called Drinks and Sinkholes by S. Usher Evans. Warm beds, cozy mysteries, and the best rosemary bread this side of Pigsend Creek. Welcome to the Weary Dragon Inn. Bev may not know who she was before she showed up in the quaint village of Pigsend 5 years ago, but that does not bother her much. She's made a tidy little life for herself as the proprietor of the Weary Dragon Inn, where the most notable event is when she makes her famous rosemary bread. But when earthquakes and sinkholes start appearing all over town, including near Bev's front door, she's got to put on her sleuthing hat to figure out what or who might be causing them before the entire town disappears. And the last book I have for you is called Cursed Cocktails by S.L. Rowland. When life gives you lemons, squeeze them into a stiff drink and stir. After 20 years defending the frozen north against some of the most dangerous threats in the Nine Kingdoms, Roran Bloodbane has finally earned his retirement. While the Blood Mage's service to the realm may have ended, burning veins and aching joints remain, and Roran soon learns that a warmer climate offers relief from his chronic pain, and a chance at a fresh start. In the warm and relaxing atmosphere of Eastbourne, the Umbral Elf finds a new purpose and a sense of belonging. He may have left the frozen north behind, but he brings with him the skill and strength gained from a lifetime of defending the realm, along with his most prized possession, a book of drink recipes inherited from his father. Spilled cocktails may not carry the same weight as spilled blood, but opening a tavern brings a unique brand of challenges. With the right friends and a little bit of luck, he might just have a recipe for success. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
as always, we really appreciate the Indie Connection, which had a lot of chatter about, which we'll get to here in a second in the comments. So that's awesome. But one of my recommendations made it, and I'll tell you about that here in a second. But yeah, it's awesome that she does that each and every week for us, and we're real excited for that. And yeah, I'm just doing the film connection just to give her a little break, and hopefully you guys check that out when you check that out as well. But I wanted to go back a little bit and talk about some of the comments. Let's see. I have a friend who writes Amish romance, so signing at events, she always dress Amishy. And
Nice.
Bob says the concept of Amish romance I find interesting, like the demand has to come from outside the community, right? And Vanessa says, yes, I expect so, particularly in clean romance. I don't know how you can get much cleaner than Amish. Bob also mentioned that the band he used to roadie for knew Prince a bit, and she has a few stories, which JD can chime in. Everybody has a Prince story. Bill Murray stories too. Yeah, Bill Murray's another one of those. Although I've heard Bill Murray's a lot different than he is on in character wise, but Amish romance, would that be a slow turn? We had to get that in there. We're just talking about puns. Anita says she's currently reading Legends and Lattes, and it's a fun, cozy read. So fun, cozy. There you go, everybody. Sarah T. Bond is a rad person, and that was the book I recommended. If you didn't know, that was one of my top 5 books of 2024. Or 20, was it 24? Yeah, I think it was 24. No, 23. Sorry, 2023. It was I think it was my number 4 or number 3 book of the year. It is awesome. Summer's Blood. If you love cozy fantasy in a neat little bar setting, it's very, very, it's very chimey. It's very cool. I love that book very much, which many people need these days. So here's to that and comparable indie goodness. Absolutely. And Bob wants some rosemary bread, and then he read Cursed Cocktails. So damn rosemary bread for the win. Yes, absolutely. So
It is lunchtime, so
did you enjoy Cursed Cocktails? Obviously, you probably enjoyed that book.
yeah, I did. Legends and Lattes was my introduction to cozy fantasy. So I read it and I was like, "Ooh, I really like this. I want more." And so I dug around, and Cursed Cocktails was one that I read. And then The Wizard's Butler was the second one I read. And then TJ Klune has some that I've read. And yeah, there's all sorts of good cozy fantasy stuff.
I highly recommend Summer's Blood if you haven't checked that out, because that's really worth it. It's in that genre as well. So
I think I was at the book party for it. They had the celebration for that at one of the cons, and
that
I happened
multiverse.
to be there.
Yeah,
Multiverse.
They did the cocktails and everything there, and
yeah, it was a super cool event. So
you and I went to that together, dude.
we did. Yeah.
He had too many cursed cocktails.
I did.
All right. So I wanted to bring this up. And along these lines, and this is Vanessa's question that I was referring to before we went to the Indie Connection, which is in discussion about being authentic online. Particularly, I'm interested in y'all's thoughts about posting political opinions, social equity, and etc. And there's there's a particular the House of Frank is a good one. I'll add that in there. There's a particular author that we all know, used to love and know, who kind of fucked up, for lack of a better term. And so putting them, you ever wonder why people are guarded, right? It's for this reason, because they have skeletons in their closet to be guarded about, right? And so they're very careful, and they choose their words. I've seen him do interviews. I'm not going to mention his name. Y'all can look it up. I think everybody here knows who I'm talking about. But you've seen him in interviews. He's very guarded. He is very careful about the words he chooses. And I've interviewed enough celebrities and seen enough celebrity interviews to know that is something that you're taught and really, yeah, sorry. That's a great point, Vanessa. He didn't fuck up. That implies an innocent mistake. He was dead on predatory. Yes, correct. My apologies for but yeah. So that's an interesting aspect of this, right? Because authenticity for indies is really an interesting thing, but we all have political opinions, and not all of us agree on the political spectrum. Not all of us agree. Well, hopefully, all of us agree on equality, but if whatever. I mean, uh, but you know what I mean. It's an interesting juxtaposition to put ourselves in, because at one point, who really gives a crap what I think about all that? You barely read my books. Why would you give a shit what I think about that anyway, right? But on another point, if I'm too vocal about that and I do something happens, will that come back and will that hurt me later down the line? Do you guys think about any of this? I mean, that's what I'm kind of going at with this. I'm trying to figure out the line that you draw for what you do, and if you talk about this and what you think about being truly authentic and putting all of yourself out there.
So I will honestly say that we are very political with our writing. We are doing a women's rights anthology, an LGBTQ plus anthology, and an immigrant anthology all this year, because we want to stand on our political stance. We think that if you're quiet, you're complacent. If you're making noise, you can make change. And I would rather people not read me because I'm standing up for what I believe is right than read me thinking that I am on their like what they feel is right. I would rather somebody that's not racist hate me than to think that I am complacent with what they're doing.
Okay, to the point of being quiet. There's also the aspect of having to make sure that your mental health is okay. I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very intense person. I'm a very passionate person, and I have strong morals and values and beliefs. I will share them freely, and I will share them in a dialogue. And with certain things, I will agree to disagree, and with other things, I will just unfollow and block, because there are certain things where it's not a matter of debate. It's a matter of, you know what? I don't need that in my life. I do share things that are political. I do share things that are polarizing. I do share things that are that way, but I try to do it in a way where we can at least have a dialogue. In the things that we can have a dialogue on, the things that we can't have a dialogue on, fuck off. I don't need you in my life. Seriously. And I try to be the nicest, most generous person. I will always, if I have to take the shirt off my back so that you're not cold, I will do that. The way that I'm phrasing things now is that I will never deny people food, but they don't necessarily have a place at my table. And we can unpack that in a 2-hour conversation. I've always been very clear about my stances. I've always been generous in offering answers. And the stuff that I don't talk about ad nauseum is because, again, I'm making sure that my mental health is okay, because I'm a very passionate person. I'm a very emotional person. And right now, my feelings are a combination of anger and disappointment with a lot of people. And I've had to say goodbye to a lot of people. And that's going to continue to happen. And I've had to do the same with certain platforms and certain things. I will still be who I am and how I am. I grew up Catholic. But I am agnostic, and I write from an agnostic perspective. But I am open that there is a lot of Catholic imagery, just because that's what I grew up with, and because it's beautiful imagery. And there's nothing wrong with the religion. The people who apply the religions are the ones who normally are the problematic ones. To give you one example, I am for equality. I am against racism. I am for same-sex marriage. I am for women having their right to have bodily autonomy, and so on and so forth. And anyone that wants to come at me, etc., it's gotten to the point where I'm not going to have a fight. We're just not going to have a conversation, and we don't have to even be in contact. So, ciao.
DZ, Bob, you guys want to jump in?
I mean, it's definitely.
Sure.
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
So yeah, this is something I think about a lot. And I listened to a podcast, and the host on there was talking about how basically for the majority of his, basically for all of his adult life, every day he had thought about Trump for some reason, whether he was running for office, in office, just got out of office. And he said, honestly, I'm tired of thinking about that guy. Like, I'm just tired. Like, I'm letting this guy have far more. Um, this guy's doing so much damage to my mental health, and I'm just over it. So my goal is to try and not think about this guy as much as possible. And when I heard that, I was like, damn, he's right. So I have largely disengaged from talking about national politics on social media. Um, I will happily talk about it all day face to face. I get into a bizarre number of political conversations at my booth. You'd be surprised at how many times I end up.
Or at 3
Uh,
a.m. At 3 a.m. when we're closing the bar.
or yeah, and I
That's
will not
exactly what
shy,
you need at 3 a.m.
yeah, and I will not shy away from you know having a political conversation. As long as the conversation is about something you can have a conversation about. I have had to cut people from my life for a variety of reasons. And I like to think that I I like to think that people don't have to guess where I stand on these issues. I don't talk about them a lot, but I have extensively in the past. But at this point, I'm saving my energy for local politics. Um, That's where I run a small nonprofit, and largely what we do is engage in city politics. That's where my energy goes. But kind of the flip side of it is my books are not, uh, I don't have ACAB written across my books. Um, but like if you read my books, they don't paint a flattering portrait of the police. Um, and if I just sat there and you know if every one of my posts was, ACAB this, ACAB that, regardless of my viewpoint, I would drive away a lot of people. And the whole point of me writing the series was to show that drug addicts are people worthy of love. And uh, a lot of people are very much in the whole you can't talk bad about police crowd. And if I make that very clear that I have, viewpoints like this, they'll never read my book. And
Mhm.
my dream here is that people will read this book and it hopefully change their opinion about drug addicts and about the state of policing in the deep South around drugs. But if I drive them away right out the gate, they're never going to read it and never potentially have their eyes open to what a nightmare it is for someone like my main character. Um, it's not something that I'm super every page is beating you over the head with this, but like you cannot finish these books and not acknowledge that policing has been a factor in ruining this guy's life. Um,
So
I
C.S.
mean,
Lewis
let's be
light
real.
in terms of your beliefs,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
because
I don't
C.S.
know.
Lewis was so subtle.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, I don't have a overly fond view of organized religion, and I think that comes through on the page, but I don't sit there on my social media and belabor that I think a lot of the ills of the world come from organized religion. But
There's also some nods to high school football and football culture in general, and in a lot of what
yeah,
he does,
I
and
I
which is
I
very
love it.
toxic and very interesting as well.
Yeah.
So.
I love, college football and whatnot. But in high school football, I enjoyed it at the time, but like, yeah, there's a lot of negatives that come from that. And I don't want to scare, like, obviously, look, if you're a racist, you're a Nazi, fuck off. Um, but if you're just run of the mill Republican like the majority of my family, who are very nice, kind people. They just have very skewed views on economic policy and its effects on people like me, and who have been poor their entire adult life. Uh, then look, I want to have a conversation with you, and I want to show you that there are other ways to view things. So yeah, but I will readily acknowledge I'm a straight white dude in Alabama, which is arguably the state most designed to benefit straight white dudes. I got I was born on third base and hit a home run essentially. So um, largely, I mean, why the fuck would anyone want to listen to me anyway? So
Yeah, well, Vanessa made that point earlier in the conversation. She says, I agree with Tiffany 100%. If someone is a bigot, my books are not for them. I know, too, that how loud and quiet you choose to be can often be directly parallel to one's privilege, and that she believes that I believe that I have more responsibility to speak because of my privilege. So I was going to bring that up here. So, all right, DZ, you want to take this all home for us?
Definitely was gonna mimic or mirror a lot of what Bob said. I have kind of even tested things a little bit lately with moving to a new pen name and creating a social media that was separate from, and that was a lot of the reason. I was posting on social media under my real name. I was writing under my real name. Those posts were public for anybody to see. I also got laid off from my job at the beginning of the year, so I was applying for 100 jobs. Somebody looked me up. All those posts were public, and if they wanted to start skimming through one of my books, they'd be like, "Oh, this guy's talking about cannibalism. Is that somebody I want to have working?" People have that mindset. One of my friends said, "Why did you make your last name backwards or whatever it was?" And it was because of that. Well, I'm looking for a job, and I mentioned cannibalism in a book, and they go, and then some people have that mindset that they don't want somebody working for them that writes books about cannibalism. So, I mean, that's and I'm not out there obviously talking about it. Stephen King's not posting every day about kids in sewers or whatever it is. He's making posts about, obviously he does make his political stance very clear, and it comes through in his writing. For me, it definitely comes through, like, for what I have coming through in the forthcoming in the spring. I noticed that a lot of Florida's banned books were books I read in school that were required reading. And I worked at Books a Million. That's actually where me and Juliet Rose met. We are both authors who met at a bookstore we both worked at.
That's awesome.
But when I was working there, a lot of those books that are banned were required reading that I saw on the shelf. I helped so many kids get, books that are banned now. And it's one of those things that I do mention. And then obviously having a disability, before I got laid off from my job, I was on disability. Like, I couldn't do the physical jobs that I used to do anymore. And I got the measly money that I got from the government, and it took me 3.5 to 4 years to do that because I couldn't find a job. So that stuff will definitely come out in my writing, and it does. It's come out in the past, and it's kind of coming out more so probably now in my future things, because I can see now how, hell, I'm going to be 40 this year, and we haven't made progress in my mind for people with disabilities. And really, anyway, we might talk about it and people are more sympathetic to it than maybe they were when I was a kid. And, people, don't call me crippled every day, but I hear it when we bought our house and we had a real hillbilly. He was about 7 years old, and he was like, "Your hands, like, you were crippled," like, and so that comes out in my writing. And for some people, that could be even offensive. Like, I'm exploring that more. I've heard that word my whole life, so it's coming out in my writing more. I'm showing what people with disabilities go through and what people's assumptions of them are, especially in the working world or in the world in general. And does it mean that I'm constantly going to post things like, it depends on what mood I am. Right now, I'm trying to dial myself in a little bit because I can be over the top, or I can get really worked up. And in the past, that hasn't worked for me. Like Bob says, it can shut a lot of people out. That's why I think sometimes writing it in a creative way is sometimes the best bet for me, at least, because otherwise, it could it could, maybe get out of hand where I am more inclined to somebody says the, wrong thing, and I'm at my day job and I read a post that somebody said, whatever, saying something like, calling me something, I might respond more intensely because in that time I'm not in my typical mind frame. I'm not at home, in that social media mindset. Because for me, it is a persona to an extent, but I need to be in the right mindset if I want to make sure I'm engaging with people properly. And I think a lot of old time writers, and maybe in Hollywood and things like that, there's definitely been, there was a day and age where people didn't, know so much about people. I remember asking a kid in high school, this is 2000 and this is right after 9/11. So, and I remember saying like, who are your parents voting for in the election? And it was like, screw you. My dad doesn't, keep it to yourself. And there was a point in time where people kind of kept things a little bit more under wraps. There was a little bit more of a privacy thing. And now we've lived in a lot more of a transparent sort of, social media's just made it that way. So it's definitely a tricky game. I mean, I think that is the ultimate question for anybody creative right now is how do you dial in what your beliefs are, and how do you make sure that you're, you're scaring away the right people for sure, and you're not sometimes wording things the wrong way. I mean, when I'm writing about characters that have cerebral palsy right now, I'm writing them from my perspective, and it may not, if I didn't put that introduction in the beginning that lets people know that that's the voice that I'm coming from, they might be like, oh, this is just an author trying to, maybe profit off of people with disabilities, not knowing that obviously I'm coming from my own voice.
Well, there's that performative aspect as well. There's a lot of people who post stuff performatively. It's not what they think. It's what will get likes. It's what will get them attention. And that's when I hold myself off from adding to that fire, just because I think it's the wrong fire. And I'd rather try to do something real life than get on a soapbox and just do that, because I've done it, and the dopamine wears off really quick versus other stuff that if I'm actively working on to support, I feel like I'm doing a proper difference. The question is, what feels like it's making a proper difference to you, and to go, to the rhythm of your own drum and not follow someone else's lead unless it makes sense and it connects with you. If it connects with you, fucking go it. But if it's like I have to say this because, then don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will just quickly add, building on what DZ said about scaring away people. Sometimes you do want to scare away people. I tell people, like with my pitch line, in my mind, the perfect pitch line scares away as many people as it pulls in, because you don't want to waste time trying to sell your book to someone who would never be interested in your book. If the idea of a redneck wizard with a meth problem is unappealing to you, I want to get that out quickly. And when I see you go, ugh, then I know, okay, cool. Let's save us all some time, and let me talk to your friend there who seemed much more intrigued. So
I'll say this, kind of to go back to it. It obviously we're seeing how the benefits of now living in a more transparent world with people from, coming forward, especially with a particular writer in mind. And it's unfortunate that it's taken this long for things like this to come forward, but a lot of it is because for so long it was,
Yeah.
you might be making that up, but I think now that as we're starting to kind of see that some people definitely have an underbelly, you know what I mean? That a dark underbelly to them. And, I remember, I'll say this, I remember I used to see interviews of Bill Cosby, when I was about 99, like 2000, I was an MTV kid. And he was very unhappy in his interviews when they were interviewing. And he was just very not the character that I watched as a kid. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember working a job, and a girl was like, Bill Cosby's like, I wish he was my dad. And I said, this is before it was coming out. It was just before Hannibal Buress is kind of, bringing to light like this is what this dude did, and people don't realize. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if something came out about him. There's just something about him when I've seen him interviewed on the red carpet, the way he talks about other people is very degrading. So when that came out, I was like, oh my goodness. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't surprised, because he really started to show as he got older. He wasn't showing the person he was in the 80s, 70s, and by the 90s, he was showing his misery ultimately.
Daniel Tosh does this great bit about people talking about how they could never see it coming whenever they interview the neighbor of the serial killer, and they go, I know, he was such a nice guy, I could never see it coming. He goes, really? My mom is a nursery school teacher, and I could see her murder some kids. I could see it.
Talk about with that author. Me and Joe know a guy who had been thoroughly screwed over by him in a business setting, and I tend to. One thing I will say about the indie author community is, up to a certain point, is very good about self-policing. The folks who are shady in business, the folks who don't treat other people like humans, pretty quickly get weeded out. They don't get to, they get cut from conventions, yada, yada, yada. The problem with that author was he was just such a big name that people didn't want to risk speaking out about him, because, oh, well, this could hurt my career. I would love to get a blurb from that guy or something like that. And it's okay. Do you really want to blur from that guy that just screwed over your friend in business? Like, no, you don't. Like, call it like it is. If you see someone being, uh, if they're a terrible person in one regard, they are probably a terrible person in ways that you aren't seeing. So just assume. So when all this came out about him, I was like, okay, yeah, that tracks. If he will screw over people he views as beneath him in business, then it absolutely tracks that he would do any number of horrible things to people he views as beneath him. So, yeah.
So that's an interesting topic that we can talk about on another occasion. But there are a lot of people that think of other people beneath them, and one whiff of that, and I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
All right. So I would like to end this on a happy note. So let's play the epilogue, everybody. I'm going to help you guys out today because we need to get this going, and I'm going to tell you it's a man that I am right now, and that I've written both fiction and nonfiction, and that I'm a current author. I exist, and I've written within this century, within this decade, within the last 5 years. And if you know anything about David Lynch, something that he practices very well will lead you to me. So, with that in mind, how we play this game, because DZ's never played before, basically, this is 20 questions. I'm going to let each of you ask one question. It's a yes or no question that you can ask. So, JD will ask, and then Bob, and then DZ, and then Tiffany. And then I will leave it open for you to finish the 16 questions that you have remaining. Anybody can ask at any time. And then if you want to guess, you can guess, but you get one guess and one guess only. And then if you guess early and it doesn't pan out, you can still ask questions, but you can't guess again. All right. So, JD, why don't you start us off with the questions?
Are you known for transcendental meditation?
Yes.
Have any of your books been turned into movies?
Oh.
Yes.
Have any of your nonfiction books been turned into movies?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question. I have to look that one up. I think so.
Just tell me who it is. I'll wiki it for you real quick.
Nice try. That was clever. I appreciate that. Possibly, yes. Possibly. I don't know the actual answer to that question, but possibly. Tiffany?
Do you write thrillers?
Not really, no. I mean, I thought they were thrilling books when I read them. I'm speaking as Joe Compton, but they're not labeled thrillers, no. Whoever wants to ask a question, it's open now, so go ahead.
Mm.
I don't know.
Judy
JD
tried
was
to
very.
Google who it is.
He had a very like weird question, so I feel like he knows who it is.
No, the thing is that David Lynch is very well known for practicing transcendental meditation, and he always promotes it. And he's a very he still is, he's still around, an ardent proponent of it. And it has worked for a lot of people. And I was like, is that it? But in terms of authors who openly say that, that's where I'm going like, crap. Because there's a bunch of celebrities that do this, including Michael Cera, that I saw him recently. And if you didn't see the last season of Twin Peaks, he was fun in it.
Is it an American author?
He's American citizen. I'm an American citizen, but I'm not American originally.
Are the books, or the majority of the fiction books, are they comedic in nature?
That's hard to say because yes, they're like comedic in your sense. They're tongue in cheek, but they're not labeled comedic.
Are his nonfiction books about writing?
He does not have a nonfiction book about writing. No.
Okay.
I do not have it. I should say I do not have a nonfiction book about writing. No. At least I don't think so. I'm pretty sure of that. I've read pretty much all of my books, so. I knew where DZ was going there, but yeah, no.
Is the country of their birth a European country?
No. You are at 8 questions, guys.
Do you write primarily fantasy?
Again, the line is blurred, but it is the fictional stuff is technically pseudo fantasy, I would say.
So is your fictional stuff okay? Was one of your fictional books turned into a cult classic movie?
I don't know about cult classic.
Okay, dang. Yeah, you would definitely say cult for what I was thinking there. All right.
No.
Wow, man.
Are you take it back?
Come on, guys. Let's pick it up a little bit.
Damn it.
Are you South American?
No.
Your country of birth, is it South America?
No, but that's a
Canadian?
great thought.
Well, then it's not who I thought it was, although I couldn't remember their name, so I wouldn't have been able to ask it anyway. So.
God, okay. Beyond being an author, are you also known as a director?
No.
Okay.
Have you ever acted in any of the films based on your books?
No. But
because
there's a caveat there.
Has he ever played himself in a movie?
Yes.
Okay.
He knows it.
Who knows it?
JD. He has to know it.
No, it's like I'm tiptoeing around it and I can't find it.
I got nothing.
Yeah. I'm trying to Google it too, and I can't.
Think about what you've already connected, right? Trans meditation, nonfiction, fiction. So to think about those elements and ask questions based on that. Don't worry about origins or who they are. I mean, yes, if you were to find the country that I'm from, you probably get it right away. But think about the connections that we're talking about right now.
God, I don't know.
You're at 14 questions, guys. And painfully, these 6 questions better not last another hour.
Ooh.
Do you wear glasses?
Yes.
That doesn't help much.
No.
Are you the Dalai Lama?
No. Again, though. Track that. Go with that instinct. God, I can't believe I'm helping you guys out this much.
I can't believe we haven't guessed it.
God, oh.
I feel like I'm going to be very upset when you say this name.
You will be. You'll be very upset. I'm more famous than famous.
Everything I go to, just everything gets shut down from what you've answered. So I'm like, nope, not him.
Do you guys just want to skip the last 3 questions and guess? Or do you
All my
guys want
guesses have been shut down.
Yeah, I know.
More famous than famous, but they've written the last 10 years, you said.
Yep. In fact, published a book last year.
A fiction book last year?
No.
Okay. Man.
Are you in your 80s?
No.
Okay. Fuck.
2 more questions.
I'm done with questions. I don't know who it is. Okay.
Only thing I'm coming up with is on that subject is Bob Roth, and he's not more famous than famous, so I'm lost.
You guys can cry uncle if you want. It's up to you.
I'm gonna have to because mine are shut down.
Are you a religious figure?
Yes.
The Pope?
No. Wrong guess.
Are you Jesus?
No. But again, you're on the right track.
Okay. I'm gonna. I was fucking around with the Pope. Russell Brand?
No.
Okay.
I'm not Russell Brand.
That is
Dark,
that.
though. I'm like,
That was a great guess.
In terms of all the stuff and in terms of etc.
Oh.
Him wanting to look like Jesus.
Bob, Tiffany, and DZ, you have one guess. Give me your guess.
L. Ron Hubbard.
No.
Is he still alive? No.
No.
yeah, I was getting on that kind of same.
You want to make a guess? I'm gonna tell you guys here in a second.
Go for it. I don't
Go
know.
for it. I'm calling Uncle.
I am Deepak Chopra, everybody.
Oh my
Oh,
god!
get the fuck out!
I thought you had it with the Jesus one, Bob, or the God one, but yeah, and that's who I am.
I was really moving in that realm too.
Fictional books about Buddha. I wrote a book called Life of Pi that was made into a movie, which I appeared in as myself, and I wrote tons of.
I worked at the bookstore when Life of Pi was out, and like the movie and everything, and yeah, should have.
I had no idea that he wrote Life of Pi.
He wrote the essential story for it. Somebody else wrote the book, so
yeah.
Okay.
That's where it got me there.
I Love Ruru the other day. I should have got that.
I've never read a book by him, so
I highly recommend Buddha. Buddha is one of those great books that he wrote. It's a fictional non-fictional tale of the life of Buddha, and it's fucking amazing, and it's very funny. So
Okay.
That's
what I
worth
was
checking
talking
out.
about.
The
Yeah,
Buddha.
really good.
But,
And he's 78, so he's not in his 80s. I should have asked if he was in his 70s. Damn it.
yeah, that's why I said no.
Well,
All right. So let's get out of here, guys. Let's have everybody tell everybody where they can find you. DZ, start us off. Tell everybody where they can find all your wonderful stuff at right now.
Right now you can find me on Facebook just under my name, and same thing for Instagram. I have too much stuff coming out since I decided to start a new pen name after putting novellas out under my real name. So I've got a lot of ground to make up this year. So I have a novelette coming out in the end of February called Dark Trees. I have a novella called Spearheaded coming out April 1st. And then a coworker and I are working on a audio book series that we've been working on that'll be out some point, probably in the springtime or summer.
All right. Tiffany?
You can find us at outsiderpublishingcompany.com. And since we did get a little political here, we are actually taking political stories. Go check it out on our website. And you can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook. And if you do actually want to read a story about somebody putting the smack down on some Nazis, we do have a story in Christmas Chaos about killing Nazis. So go check it out.
Very good. All right, Bob.
how do Germans tie their shoes? Into little Nazis. You can find me anywhere online. Tells by Bob. I have books and podcasts. Go check them out.
Yes. JD.
If you're curious to see what I write, look for JD Estrada, preferably in local bookstores back in Puerto Rico. If you like it digital, go to the Zon. Eventually, I hope to shift away from that just because I don't want to feed the machine anymore. In terms of social media, look for me on Blue Sky and Substack. I'm going to get started on Substack. I won't mention the other platforms because who knows if by the end of 2025, I will have to engage in other places and not the meta shitstorm that it is.
Fair enough. All right. I'm Joe Compton. You found Go Indie Now. Congratulations. If it's your first time here, please hit the like button, subscribe, comment, do all the wonderful things that you do because it is always time to go Indie Now. And with that, we're out. We'll see you guys later. Bye.